Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Oscar Talk number 34. Thanksgiving week, this is a week with a lot of Oscar contenders releasing. We got The Fablemans, we got She Said just released, we've got Bones and All, not really an Oscar contender, but that's exciting, Lots of fun stuff to talk about this week, and I'm joined by Anthony, as always, to do so.
Yes, hello. That and Glass Onion, which I'm
Oh,
excited
and Glass Onion.
to
Yes,
see for
yes.
Wednesday. So, lots happening. As you know, Thanksgiving. Now we're firmly in award season, I feel.
We're getting
So
some
we have
nominations.
a whole lot of things to talk about today. So we're very excited to be here.
Yes, of course. Let's dive into our first topic, which we were just short of time last week. We missed it by like a couple hours. The Babylon reactions, which, totally expected, nothing too crazy to talk about. Everyone loved it, is the conclusion that I came to. Now, as you all probably know, because I'm sure you've read them by now, very, very, very divisive. I would say divisive still leaning positive. Like if it were to have a Metacritic score, it'd probably be in like the high 60s, low 70s, I would say. Um, Rotten Tomatoes are probably around the same area. Who knows? We'll have to wait to December to see. But yeah, wide ranging opinions. Some people saying it's like one of the worst movies of the year, and it's like gross and vile and like debauchery and like shoving your face in the mud and saying enjoy it. And some people saying it's like Damien Chazelle's best movie and one of the best films of the year and like a true Hollywood epic, and all the performances are great. Specifically singling out Diego Calva and Margot Robbie. So yeah, wide range of stuff going on here. I think we both expected a little bit going into it for it to be divisive, considering the runtime, the script, which from everything I didn't read the script, but from everyone who has read it, was very adult, easily his most adult film yet and mature. Uh, so yeah, what are your thoughts on
It's,
this, Anthony?
I think it'll. Oh no, Whiplash was rated R for its language and stuff. I was trying
I
because I was
did
like, I
think so.
don't think he had made an R-rated movie, but Whiplash was. Yeah, I see this kind of going the path of The Revenant, getting like a
Yeah,
high 70s in Rotten Tomatoes, being respected for its craft, for its directorial achievements, and I think the director being the main point of conversation, being the star, if you will. Because I think, as much as The Revenant was about Leo, it really was about Alejandro Inarritu, like after Birdman coming out the next year with this very different film. And this definitely, as much as Damien Chazelle loves Hollywood or loves movies. We'll get into the Hollywood of it all in a second.
yeah,
This seems to be a very different type of film. Um, what I found interesting is that he himself said at one of these Q&As that he's done in the post screening events is that he describes it as a hate letter to Hollywood, but a love letter to film and to movies. And I think what we're seeing in these reactions, setting aside the debauchery or like how much the film revels in itself, I do think that might be a point of contention. And just that, a lot of people in Hollywood like Hollywood. They like Hollywood movies. That's
they're
why
also
Top
the
Gun is
people
so
voting
well.
at the Academy
Yeah.
Awards.
So I do think even if they don't recognize it as such, I think that that could run into an issue for this film where it is so stark in its depiction of this industry, especially a time when we all love to glorify or we love to, celebrate, which is, this time when we transitioned into sound. I could see that maybe like people getting upset because Damien Chazelle, as accomplished as he is still a young filmmaker, and maybe portraying him in the way of, oh, he doesn't understand, what it took for Hollywood to be what it is. And I'm not saying that's not a valid take. I just think that that's a potential. What I'm seeing in these reactions is just some people it's just really not connecting, and it's almost offending them, which I find to be surprising, given his track record and how much I think we have seen him prove himself time and time again. We have not seen it. I'm going to be seeing it next week, which I'm very fortunate of, and I'll be able to
Yeah,
speak on it more.
some
But
early
yeah,
insight.
yes, yes. But I'm very excited just given these reactions. I think he's one of we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, this new class of like name directors, Ryan Coogler being one, Jordan Peele being another. And I think he's among that list of
Yeah,
directors who are amassing you'll go to them just based on their name. And the fact that he's taking such a bold chance with this film, I really admire. So I'm very excited. And as far as these reactions go, as far as predicting award wins, we'll see. The Academy are going to be very different than the critics community. As we
Mhm.
saw when The Revenant came out, that wasn't a critical darling, but it was an Oscar darling. And many people thought it could win Best Picture. It ended up winning, I believe, 3 Academy Awards: Best
Directing,
Director, Best Actor,
actor,
and Cinematography.
cinematography. I'm pretty sure.
Maybe not another one. I mean, Mad Max kind of, put a
Well,
stop to that.
all the
Yeah.
other stuff, yeah.
So we'll see, but I do think these reactions, what at least I'm interested in, is just the fact that these reactions are so specific about what the movie is saying, which I feel like we don't usually see. We usually see a lot of, you know, talks about the visuals or the acting,
Mhm.
and this seems to be a lot about the themes of the film, which is interesting me. And because of that, I think it could really play or it could really not play because it's such a different type of movie. We've been using other films like Don't Look Up or Wolf of Wall Street and
Yeah.
now The Revenant to compare it, but it might be a movie that, doesn't it really can't be compared. So I'm interested to see how this works. I'm interested to see how it plays at the box office up against something like Avatar or I Want to Dance with Somebody. Because as we've seen, unfortunately, with like she said this weekend,
I
box
fear
office,
for Babylon, given its
yeah,
budget and release date, is
yeah.
all I'll say. $100 million budget, I believe. I do not believe that movie will be breaking even. But
There's so many movies are being budgeted. So
she
like
said was
said was
$32 million.
35. Yeah, like that's
That should
insane.
be
And then
10
also,
million tops lower.
yeah, and also there was a report that said that Avatar would need to make $2 billion to break even,
Really?
which is insane. That's the reports going out today. So maybe that's because they're maybe equating Avatar 2 and three's combined budget. I don't
Combined
know.
budget? Yeah.
But yeah, the budgets for these movies are very, very high. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Fast whatever is $350 million,
Yeah.
you know.
I do think though that Babylon is running into a problem in that if the film is this divisive, very strongly so, you'll definitely have your people who are passionate about it. But Paramount now could
They've
firmly
got Top
position
Gun.
themselves to Top Gun. And
They
I
should.
think where Babylon maybe thought they had it in the bag, now they run into the surprise contender in Elvis, which is very similar as far as these big debauchery type of reveling in its artistry and in its luxury. But that film, I think, getting it seems more favorable reaction. So I wonder, where does Babylon go? Is Paramount just going to firmly push Damien for Best Director and maybe just cut their losses on other categories? I'm interested to see how this plays because this kind of reminds me of Blonde in that the studio wants this movie to be one thing, the movie gets delivered, and it's such a different thing that maybe isn't the most appropriate for a traditional awards campaign. I'm very intrigued by these reactions.
Yeah, I do think almost with Paramount, I'm not sure how much campaigning Top Gun needs at this point, to be honest. It seems pretty, I mean, it's always good to campaign just in case, but it seems everyone saw it, everyone liked it. It seems like most branches will end up liking it. So if they wanted to put a little extra weight behind Babylon, which will probably need it more, I would think that might be a good idea.
For
But
nominations, I agree. I think for the wins, they
yeah.
may have to choose a
Mhm.
favorite. But for nominations, I agree. I think it's pretty in all the categories we want it to get in. It seems that maybe Best Actor is really the only one that's maybe on the edge, as far as
Yeah.
potentially needing a little bit of oomph to get it there. But we'll talk about some of our critics groups already. They're
Mhm.
they're they're going for it. They're going for
They
Tom
are.
Cruise, man.
They are. Before we finish up on Babylon, if I were to compare it to other movies, I'd say it's a mix of Mank and Wolf of Wall Street. I think it'll get a good amount of tech nominations, probably director, one or two acting, but I think it'll win production design, and I think that's all it will probably win. Kind of like I think Mank won production design and cinematography, but it'll miss screenplay and editing, which makes sense.
I ask you this because it seems that you're alluding to this. If Babylon is not the biggest nominated movie at the end of the nominations morning, what do you think will be the most nominated film of the day?
Uh, Fablemans probably. If I were to guess, yeah, I would say Fablemans. I think it might still be Babylon because I think it'll get most of the tech nominations, but not most of the wins. But
Okay.
yeah, I'd say Fablemans is high up there. I'd say Babylon's high up there. Top Gun, maybe if it gets into an acting category, could be high up there.
And what we haven't talked about, which we're now going to get into one of our first critics groups that gave out nominations today, um, Top Gun might be amassing a very surprise, secretive Best Director nomination, which I think is
Yeah.
crazy, but I mean, we got to consider it at this point, given it's such a high contender, and now critics groups are going for this movie for best director. Like
It'd be
that seems
like
to have
George
us.
Miller for Fury Road.
Yeah, yeah, but George
Less
Miller
of a
had such a
name.
long,
Yeah.
like, established
It's a
career, and
similar blockbuster achievement.
it is a similar blockbuster treatment, I grant you. It's just it's rare, I think, to see such a younger filmmaker in a Hollywood blockbuster get this sort of recognition. But listen, the film is extraordinary. It's gonna be it's still my number two for Best Picture as far as it goes predicting. So we got to consider it. I feel like that's the thing, is people have been just ignoring that possibility, but now, you know, the people are embracing Top Gun. I really think
They are.
it's managed to become the new Mad Max. I think it's even surpassed the likes of Dune as far as being taken seriously for Best Picture. Maybe it helps that Top Gun is singular as Mad Max was, or at least it seemed, and Dune has a sequel. That as far as taking it seriously for these top honors.
Yes, I agree. So speaking of it, Critics Awards, our first really group. I mean, we had the Gothams a few weeks ago, but another group has emerged, giving their nominations, and as the weeks continue, especially I believe in like the beginning of December is when it's really going to heat up with all of these awards nominations from all these different bodies. Which you can, I think they're fun to talk about. I think you can read into them a little bit, like individually on what they mean for the races, but I think when you have to look at all of the critic nominations as a whole or how they'll influence it, like I don't think anything that the Sunset Circle Award nominations nominated are going to affect the race, but they're still fun to look at.
What critics can do is elevate a film from just like a contender to a must see.
Like
Anne
Drive My Car.
Thompson,
That's the
yeah,
reason it ended up in
exactly. Anne
picture.
Thompson of IndieWire, who is one of my favorite Oscar pundits, always would say that, and I 100% agree, because they can do what they did for Drive My Car. They can take a movie like Room and Brie Larson and elevate it to the point that it becomes a Best Picture and Best Director contender. And then she's able to win against Kate Blanchett and Charlotte Rampling and Saoirse Ronan. You know, that's what I think critics can do. So don't discount their impact. And the other thing too, none of these awards are predictive. They're not trying to be predictive either.
Most of them. Critics' Choice kind of try to be a little predictive.
Sometimes, but at least Critics' Choice, I bet you they see more of the movies than a lot of these other televised groups. I bet you
Bro,
Critics' Choice members see more movies than the Golden Globes do,
I would hope.
or the Hollywood Foreign Press. So that's why when we talk about critics groups, we're not saying that this necessarily means that, oh, the path to Oscar is clear, but it is good that it's getting this type of conversation. It's getting this boost. They're getting talked about, and now other people may be seeing it. Because what if the critics are nominating it and awarding it? It means that people are talking about it, and those conversations are really integral to building a campaign. The ones that we don't necessarily see.
Yes. I just think you need multiple nominations in order from critics group in order to truly gain traction. Like I don't think just one nomination, like Drive My
Oh yeah,
Car. One I think both Lafka and yeah, the critics like just adored it. So yeah. So speaking of our first list, the Sunset Circle Awards, top films of 2022, pretty much their best picture. They've got After Sun, which I just recently saw and loved. Decision to Leave, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Menu, RRR, She Said, Tar, Top Gun, and Women Talking. I think the most notable miss here would be The Fablemans. So, yeah, thoughts on this? I really like seeing movies like RRR and The Menu mentioned because I doubt that they'll be mentioned come Best Picture. So it's nice to see them have a little attention. But everything else, I mean, I wish After Sun was a bigger contender. I think After Sun is a movie I would look out for, like doing very well at all the critics awards. It seems like something that could have
it could
that
be like Drive
rise.
My Car.
It could be. So could Decision to Leave, also nominated here. I think both very possible. A24, I do just have doubts about them having three true contenders, but if the critics do the campaigning for them, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting list. I think I mean, to be honest, I really like this list because I think it, as I believe their voting body said, or their president said, we are celebrating the indie darlings. We're celebrating the big popcorn flicks. We're looking at it in totality as one type of voting group. We're not distinguishing a difference, and I like that because there's a film like Elvis and Top Gun that are worthy, just
Yeah.
as After Sun and RRR, RRR.
RRR.
But so it's an interesting cross section of movies. I think this bodes very well for Elvis in particular.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Elvis.
I mean, it's a really interesting, very interesting list.
Yeah, it's a nice eclectic group of your indie movies, your critic favorites, your big blockbuster hits, all that fun stuff. Best director, as we mentioned earlier, Todd Field for Tar, Joseph Kosinski for Top Gun Maverick, Park Chan-wook for Decision to Leave, Sarah Polley, Women Talking, and S.S. Rajamouli. I'm sorry, I probably mispronounced that, for RRR. Thoughts on this? A nice group. Once again, Fableman's missing, but yeah,
Yeah, I think Fableman's it could have had an accessibility issue, as we've seen happen sometimes with critics groups, just not getting the screeners out to them or not getting
yeah,
enough invitations. Um, and also, like, that's not the type of movie that needs to play well with critics. It's the type of
yeah,
movie that will play well with the industry. When we get to the industry awards like SAG, Directors Guild, Writers Guild, then we'll start seeing the Fablemans really grow strong. Um,
yeah.
Park Chan-wook, I think he could be that surprise fifth nomination in the
I
Best
had him in
Director
our
category.
predictions last time, if you
Yes.
remember.
So look out for him. Decision to Leave, I think, is growing in popularity. And I mean, it's coming from a very, I think it's Mubi, who's behind that one. So
Yes,
they're an unquantified kind of contender in this race. So we'll see what happens. I am interested. It does play into a lot of classic type of movies. It's like it has like an homage to Vertigo. It feels a lot like Chinatown. So it could be the type of movie that if people see it could really benefit. And the director's branch
he's very
usually,
well respected too,
yeah, goes out
director.
of their way to find those foreign directors that do just such great work, and then they're able to elevate them in this category. So, but this again bodes well that Decision to Leave is presented here because again, it's all about building momentum.
Yeah, yeah. This increases my belief in having him as my number five, but I'm still not, we'll have to see how it continues with the critics groups. Nice to see Sarah Polley. I hope that continues also. I know there's lots of talk of her being potentially snubbed. I hope not, but we'll see. Todd Field for Tar. I think I could guess at this point he'd probably be my personal winner by the end of the year. I'm just a big Tar head, Lydia Tar fan. Um, and
Well,
then
I know we're both looking forward to the episode when we do our own awards
our
and we
own, oh God, yes, that will be
yeah,
fun.
it's
We'll
gonna be a lot
be
of fun.
Tar heads, yeah, Tar heads,
Yes,
nope heads,
notepads
everything
definitely.
everywhere all at once
Yeah,
heads.
it'll
Um,
be a fun list.
it will be. And then yeah, Joseph Kosinski, it's nice to see him awarded. I could see him maybe like being the director nominated at the DGA or something that misses because there's always that one director.
That's
But
interesting. Yeah, I
possible,
mean,
possible.
listen, don't discount him because I do think that the fact that like critical groups who don't need to give this type of movie a boost and don't need to give him a boost are doing that shows that this isn't the Tom Cruise show. And I think that bodes well for the movie overall, that they're not just awarding it based on their nostalgia for the original. They are awarding it for a specific achievement this time around with the specific crew on this movie, which I think is true. I think Top Gun Maverick, having seen the original, and I like the original, but this is an improvement on the original.
Yes,
And it bodes well for Paramount. It's going to be a
it
good. I
does
think it's probably going to be Paramount's best Oscar showing. I want to say of
in
this
a
century.
while. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't think of their last huge contender. It's been a while. And yeah, then nice to see SS Rahamuli for RRR. Like
definitely.
because it's not gonna get some Oscar love because it wasn't submitted, so it's nice to see the critics still supporting it.
Mhm.
Best actor, we've got Austin Butler, Elvis, Tom Cruise, Top Gun Maverick, Colin Farrell, Banshees of Inisherin, Brendan Fraser, The Whale, Paul Mescal, After Sun. What if I told you this was my current five?
I There's a part of me that wants that to be the five.
That is my five right now. You know, you
Uh,
got the one previous nominee in Tom Cruise, and then you got like the indie darling and Paul Mescal, and then those other three are just locked in at this point.
yeah, we'll see. It's definitely it's very possible. The only again the thing we're waiting on is Emancipation. I think that's the only real
Yeah, that's
untested
tricky.
variable in this. We got to see what's going to happen. Of course, that's as far as Emancipation, what that does pre-Oscars in other awards bodies and then the Oscars themselves is, there's a lot of questions around that movie. But that's really, I think that's the only one we're really waiting on at this point. So
Yeah, I
that
mean, we
they
know
have to send,
Diego Calva got good reviews for his
yeah.
performance in Babylon.
And I still feel Gabriel Labelle will get a lot of support in a Timothy Chalamet
Yes,
type of way because he
I think he
is the
could get a Globe
Fablemans.
nomination.
Yeah, so I think we'll see. We'll see if what Aftersun is able to accomplish. I mean,
Yeah,
Mescal is definitely an actor who I think has a lot of respect, and it's not a lot of like you're not always hearing about it, but I do think it's simmering.
yeah,
People do know him and they like him, and maybe like Adam Driver with Black Klansman, he'll just come out of nowhere and just be able to mount this sort of nomination.
yeah. I think that movie. I mean, the British Independent Film Awards happened recently, and After Sun like swept up there. So I think when you look at the BAFTAs in general, I think that movie is going to do very well there. I would think he would be nominated. Who knows? He could even win. And then I mean, I think he'll do well at the
Already
critics'
has won a
groups.
BAFTA too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So I think it's very, very possible path for him. That's why he's my number five. But who knows? Adam Driver, also possible. Who knows?
very
Um,
possible. We'll
yeah,
see what happens with White Noise.
yeah. Best actress: Kate Blanchett for Tar, Daniel Deadwyler for Till, Mia Goth for Pearl/X, a double film performance there. Tong Wei for Decision to Leave, and Michelle Yeoh for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I still need to see both Pearl and X, but I've seen lots of people calling her like the Lupita Nyong'o, Toni Collette of this year. So, having not seen the films, I'm still happy to see her there. And I've also heard great things about Tong Wei and Decision to Leave. So, two very good nominations.
I think five really great nominations from
Yes, the
all
other
these
three
women
seem
are
pretty locked.
are incredible. And Mia Goth is the type of thing the critics that's like
Yeah,
that's what they're here for. Because that'll never translate.
no,
I mean, maybe it will. I don't think we should ever say that nothing can't, because anything can
she was at the
theoretically.
Governor Awards.
She was. But yeah, that's just it's great to see her here, and for both films because she delivers. I mean,
Yeah,
technically three great performances um, in those two movies. So definitely check those films out. Yeah,
yes.
I think this is a really solid list. I'm still worried about, because nobody's seen I Want to Dance with Somebody. I think that could really hit well. I think it could hit well with the Golden Globes, leading to SAG, and then knocking out Daniel Deadwyler, because I am still worried about that movie in a couple months.
Critics are going to
Will it still be
support her.
remembered? Um, I'm worried a little bit. But it's good that she got in here. And I'm glad because, again, Till, it seems like a movie that many people are easily forgetting.
I don't
It's
think
not
they're going
getting,
to forget her.
yeah, let's hope. But I'm glad she's here. I'm glad Michelle Yeoh is here, of course. And surprising, no Michelle Williams. Again,
Mhm.
I think this Fablemans was
They
just, I
don't. I
don't
don't
think
think
it
they
was,
don't. I just don't think they like the Fablemans. Is the impression I'm getting.
or they didn't, because did it get any nominations? I'm tending to think they just didn't get, it
It
wasn't
got it
accessible.
got supporting actor.
Oh yes, right. It got Paul Dano, which maybe we
Got
can
Paul Dano.
translate into that now.
Yeah, we
Which
can
I'm
go to
so
that now.
happy that Paul
He got
Dano
in.
got nominated.
Paul Dano for the Fablemans, Brendan Gleeson for the Banshees of Inisherin, Brian Tyree Henry for Causeway, Ki Kwan Everything Ever All at Once, and Mikael Ward for Empire of Light. Good list there. Good list.
I think this voting body is. I am personally a big fan. I think they're making a lot of great picks.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm super excited to see Paul Dano. If you saw our Fablemans talk last week, when we redid our Oscar predictions, I was very happy. I love Paul Dano in this role. I'm glad he is getting in, and I kind of see this kind of being the type of thing where like everybody thought Al Pacino was going to be the front runner for The Irishman, and then it kind of shifted to Joe Pesci once these awards started. And granted, Brad Pitt then came in and won all these awards, but there seemed to be a shift as far as who was, if we were going to pick an Irishman, who was it going to be?
Mhm.
And I hope the same thing happens because I think Paul Dano is brilliant and that movie doesn't work
An
without him.
Irishman or a Fableman.
Yes. So yeah, love this. Love Brian Tyree Henry. Such a great
Yes.
actor. Deserves some credit and credibility like this. So yeah, great list of five.
Yeah, he might be my personal favorite supporting actor performance so far this year. I have not seen movies like The Fablemans, but I think it's just really good work. Maybe his best performance he had. Very subtle. I just love the acting in that movie. I
Hugh
wish it was a
Kwan,
bigger
man.
contender.
It's
He's just
so
gonna win at this point. He's got it. I'm not gonna say locked up, but
Can we talk
No
about
one's
supporting actor?
challenging him.
Can we talk about supporting actress now?
Let's talk about supporting actress. Angela Bassett for Black Panther Wakanda Forever was nominated, along with Claire Foy for Women Talking, Hong Chow for The Whale slash The Menu, which is in, I guess, both, Tusa Mbedo for The Woman King, and Carey Mulligan for She Said. So yeah, they only picked one woman talking, and it was Claire Foy.
Which we've been saying. We've been kind of leaning Foy if they're going to pick one.
And she doesn't have vote splitting.
Yeah. I
Angela
told you,
Bassett.
Angela Bassett stands apart from the movie, whether people like the movie or not. I think this people are singling her out. I'm not saying she's
Yes,
going to win here, but I think this bodes very well that she
it's
is
a good
she
sign.
is
It's a good
proven
sign.
to stand alone as a singular nomination for the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say it's impossible. Right now, she wouldn't be in my 5. She would be in my 10. So it's a good sign also. She's probably the best shot that a Marvel movie has ever had at getting a nomination, I would say. And she's one of the better performances I've seen in a Marvel movie. And she's a great actress, and she only has one nomination. So I'd be very happy. And she's a good performance. So I'd be happy to see it happen. And yeah, the other ones, Claire Foy. I haven't seen Women Talking, but seems like
Have
she's
you
the
have you seen
standout.
She Said?
I have, yeah.
Okay, because
We'll talk
coming
about
out
it
of
later,
it,
but
yeah, it
she's not
didn't.
supporting, and it's kind of ruining other great supporting performances in that movie. Their
Well,
chances.
I mean, she does disappear for large
She
spouts of
does.
the movie, so I think you could make the argument she's supporting. I mean, the question is, she has the screen time of a supporting actor, but she's not supporting. She's supporting herself. So that, I mean, it's where you find the distinction, because she's not really supporting anybody, but at the same time, her screen time is probably more equal to that than like Kate Blanchett or Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
No, I can understand
but
supporting. I just don't like
yeah,
how it undercuts actresses and their performances like Jennifer Ely or Samantha
oh,
Morton,
oh,
who are really
100%.
good in that film.
It is always the fact that there are true supporting performances that never get have a chance
Yeah.
because the co-leads are put in supporting. Um,
Mhm.
but anyway, just because we'll talk about the chances, we have to see Women Talking. I think that's really our and The Whale. You
Yes.
know, I feel like this category has the most un like knowable performances, at least on our
Unseen.
end.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I'm what I'm feeling good about is just the fact that again, Black Panther I don't think got any other nomination from this group, but they did nominate Angela Bassett, so
Yeah.
it's voting
She's the
well
standout.
for my yes, and I also think that again I love this performance. I think she's brilliant and
Yeah.
heartbreaking, but I also think she is. It's the individual. It's the narrative. It's. I said it last week. It's going to be the Creed narrative, but work. At least that's what I'm thinking now, where it's this beloved actor playing a beloved
Hopefully.
role, and that's where it's going to lead. Though, again, once we see Women Talking, which I'll be seeing soon, hopefully, once we see Claire Foy, you know, it could really work out for her. We just got to remember the distinction between the critical community and the industry. The industry may feel like they owe it to Angela Bassett more, so that's why I'm
Amen.
waiting to see.
Also, Thusu Mbedu, very good in The Woman King. Also, another case of I'm not sure if that's a supporting performance, but either way, good performance, and I'm glad to see her get the nomination.
Yeah, I think she's
Kind of pretty
supporting
clearly
because
the lead.
she is the lead of the movie, but you're not going to put. I mean, they put Viola Davis in supporting for Fences, so I guess anything's possible. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think the just the note because Tuzo and Beto got in here, that's not great for Viola Davis, especially given Angela
No.
Bassett getting in here because they're similar. They're both playing queens of African tribes or nations, so you know they're not ignoring that type of role. So the fact that she didn't get in there, and also that Nina Haas couldn't get into this category, given it's a critical group, that Kate Blanchett, Todd Field, and Tar did
Yeah,
well,
it's
it is
true.
something to
I forgot
note
about that.
about the way this category is shaping up. So I was very
I'm
excited
not
to
going to
see.
kick her out of my 5 yet, but Nina Haas,
I don't
I'm rooting
know.
for you.
I think she's in my 5. You know, people, you know, watch last week's episode. You can remind
We'll
me.
update them soon enough, anyways. It's a weekly update thing. Best
Any other
ensemble is I
categories? Yeah,
think
you
one
want
we
to
should talk
ensemble?
about. Everything Ever All at Once, The Menu. She said Top Gun Maverick and Women Talking. A nice group here. I would say probably 2 of these would carry over to the SAG ensemble. But it's nice to see ensembles like The Menu, which has a great ensemble, and She Said, as we mentioned, great ensemble, get mentioned. And Top Gun Maverick, I think, is kind of a dark horse, honestly, for SAG ensemble. It'll
It'll be a
definitely get
dark horse
nominated for
for
stunt ensemble.
everything this season. Just don't discount. the phrase "don't count out James Cameron" that we always love to say, don't
Don't
count out
count out
Top
Tom
Gun.
Cruise. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good group there. And I think quickly screenplay also. Decision to Leave, The Menu, She Said, Tar, and Women Talking. I would look out for both Decision to Leave and The Menu as surprise screenplay nominations. I think The Menu could very much be like Knives Out and have a singular screenplay nomination.
Possible. It performed very well. I believe it was the highest grossing opening
15
weekend
million. Yeah.
since Slumdog Millionaire for Searchlight Pictures.
Yeah, that's a
So
while.
it's a while. And Slumdog Millionaire, of course, went on to win Best Picture. So it's possible. It's very possible. I just wonder,
Ray
like,
Fiennes Best Actor.
that might be going too
Sadly,
far.
probably not. Yeah.
I mean, I would go Taylor Joy before Ray Fiennes personally.
If
I
she
thought
was in supporting actress, probably. Yeah.
um, just as far as personal preference, I thought she
Mhm.
was wonderful. I want a cheeseburger. It should be. I want that T-shirt.
And she
Um,
delivered that amazingly.
yes. But I just wonder because, like, the Menu's an original screenplay, correct?
Yeah.
That's a stacked category, and
Well, I
I
think you
feel
got
like
four locks, and then you got that one last open
exactly.
spot.
And so it's a question of whether it can knock out what we both think currently is the fifth spot, which is Triangle of Sadness, which
Yeah, I'm
I
losing
see
faith in it though.
maybe possible. I mean, we're going to see a lot of those type of
I would
movies.
think the critics would support it more, and it's not so far showing up.
That's true. That's true. We'll have to judge it. But I mean, the Glass Onion, The Menu, and Triangle of Sadness are all very similar type of movies as far as the
Very similar. Then we
themes.
got White
So
Lotus too.
you got White Lotus, so
Not
it's interesting.
contending.
Let's see what the Menu does. The Menu could perform well over Thanksgiving. It could become like a very popular type of movie. Maybe it does get into SAG, and then the actors are behind it. Maybe it gets a Writers Guild nomination. It's there is a path forward for this movie. I think to be that cool type of movie that just gets a singular nomination for its screenplay, like you said, like Knives Out.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I also want to mention I just noticed this category at the bottom. Scene Stealer. The nominees were Jennifer Eel for She Said, totally deserving. Judd Hirsch for The Fablemans, David Lynch for The Fablemans, Brad Pitt for The Lost City, and Taylor Swift for Amsterdam.
I mean,
It was a viral clip, so I
it's
guess she
totally the
stole that
scene.
scene.
She stole that scene, I guess.
Yeah,
Judd Hirsch and David
David
Lynch
Lynch.
are the definition of scene stealers. So very
Yeah.
happy to see that.
So is Jennifer Eel. I thought she was really good.
Well, Jennifer Haley steals more than one scene.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
but
She steals the whole movie, honestly.
but on it, like personally, if I was nominating an actor from She Said, I would nominate Jennifer Ely and then Samantha Morton
Me too.
and then Carey Mulligan.
Yeah.
So, and no disrespect to Miss Mulligan, it's just she's Jennifer Ely and Samantha Morton get less
They're
time
given more to do
and
also.
and the movie requires their work to impress and to grab us, and they do it flawlessly. So I was very happy to see her, especially for an actor that I don't think gets her one of her bigger
She
credits of
deserves more.
recent years as being the mom in 50 Shades. So like I'm glad that she's kind of in this type of role and that at least some people are giving her recognition for it.
Yeah, yeah. Quickly, Brendan Fraser said he's not going to the Golden Globes. Not a huge surprise given that he was sexually assaulted by one of the, I don't know if they're still a part of the Golden Globes, but I
They are
believe
not.
the head of the HFPA, yeah, thankfully not a part of the Golden Globes, but yeah, he said his mother didn't raise a hypocrite. So yeah, he will not be attending, which just makes me wonder where they will lean win-wise, if they'll try, if like they will, if it's giving to him seems like they're like trying to make up for it, or if not giving to him seems like they're upset by it. But who knows? The Golden Globes are just always a whole mess. So we'll have to see who even attends.
I'm checking now. I don't have they announced a host?
I don't think so. No,
I don't think so. It'll be the 80th.
I don't think they're gonna get a good host.
Yeah, I wonder what they do. I wonder what that show is going to happen. We can't ignore it because it truly
It
it
has an
has in the
impact.
past been such an influential part of Oscar voting because your Golden Globe speech is your Oscar audition, or at least that's been the rumor and the conjecture around it. So we'll see. The power of it being on television is strong, and now that it's also going to be streaming on Peacock, I believe. We can't discount it. I applaud Brendan Fraser. I think it shows a lot
Yeah,
of integrity. And listen, Tom Cruise, I don't think is going because of
I wouldn't think so.
that back his 3 Golden Globes
Yeah.
when the original scandal happened a couple years ago, and now Brendan Fraser isn't going. So that kind of leaves Best Actor in a drama. Maybe Will Smith comes out of nowhere and is able to really
I think
do
they'll
something.
probably still give it to Brendan Fraser, if I'm being
We'll
honest.
see. I mean,
As they
listen,
should.
I thought Leonardo DiCaprio would win Best Actor in a
Or
musical,
actually,
hands
Austin
down,
Butler seems like a very globy pick.
and then Taron Egerton won for Rocket Man. So
Yeah.
they like to surprise. I mean, dare we forget Best Picture Motion Picture Drama, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Let's forget that. Yeah. There have been some nice new releases this past week. We had a few contenders release, both in limited and in wide. Let's start with our wide contender. She Said opened in a lot of theaters, debuting with one of the worst wide releases in studio history, tragically only making, I believe, 2.2 million on a $32 million budget, which is very sad because it's a very, in my opinion, we're getting into the review. It's a very good movie. I really liked it. I really like these journalism movies in general. They just really work for me. I like Spotlight. I like All the President's Men. This is different compared to those movies, I would say. It takes a different approach. It's, I would say, less journalistic-y. I think you follow more so the story of the women who are bravely coming out and telling their stories rather than the two lead journalists. They're kind of like vessels in this case, which is why, in my opinion, the supporting performances from actresses like Jennifer Ely or Samantha Morton stand out more compared to a Carey Mulligan or a Zoe Kazan, who both do exactly what they need to do in the roles that they're given. It's just more stoic roles compared to the other supporting performances. I think it may have been a little overlong. There were moments that got a little repetitive. I think it could have been shortened. And I think you could have cut some parts, but even when I think about some of the parts that could have been cut and felt repetitive, I still liked them. So I didn't like, it didn't bother me too much. I didn't really feel the runtime. So yeah, I think the screenplay is good. I think the direction, I know lots of people have been calling this like a very bland looking movie. I think it looks perfect for the story it's telling. I mean, cinematography, I feel like the one perfect shotification of people's idea of what cinematography is, about how it like needs to be like a beautiful Renaissance painting like every single shot. It's just not what good cinematography is. Like, you can have beautiful shots throughout there, and I love beautiful shots, but I think for what this movie asks, I think the cinematography is very well done. Yeah, I think it's well. You could cut some stuff, but I think the editing overall is pretty well done. Direction, Maria Schrader. Very. I mean, I've seen some of her television work. I think she's a very good director. I think she does a very good job with handling. This is a tough thing to balance and to handle properly, and I think she does it perfectly. With the way she handles, especially like all of the sexual assault stuff, you don't even see Harvey Weinstein. You just see the back of a head, and you can just tell it was directed by a woman. Is what I'll say. It's very, very tastefully done. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. What do you think, Anthony?
So I am a journalism minor, actually, and my major being
Mm.
film studies at school. Partly because I was influenced by films like Spotlight, which I love. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I do love this subgenre of journalism films.
Mhm.
And so obviously I was very excited to see She Said. Having seen the movie, I think I'm a little bit more mixed on it than you, because for me, what I felt the movie had trouble overcoming was the desire to, they wanted to tell this story effectively, and they wanted to pay tribute to all these just such important, impressive women who have done such incredible work. But I think in doing that, they lost a little bit of what makes a movie compelling. Because for me, this kind of felt like I was watching a filmed audiobook of the book that they're adapting, or like a filmed Wikipedia page, where because to me, I have the opposite interpretation. I felt that this was so focused on the journalism and getting it all
Mm.
into the article and all the interviews, that I didn't really feel I got a sense of the community. I think something, not to compare to Spotlight, because it shouldn't, you shouldn't necessarily draw a comparison, but I'll just use it here to make the case clear. There's as much time dedicated to Michael Keaton and all these journalists existing in Boston, and how what they're doing is affecting everybody, there is to the interviewing. And to me, I just felt like I didn't get the scope of this world beyond what Carey Mulligan and Zoe Kazan saw. In and listen, I that would have maybe included having to show a lot of these real people, maybe showing Harvey Weinstein, which I do admire that they didn't have to dramatize him and have an actor play that role. So it's a little I'm lost a little bit with this movie because at points I really respect what they did, but at other points I did feel the length and I did feel that this wasn't really coming together as a movie for me. I think the performances are fine. I don't think, besides Jennifer Ely and Samantha Morton, which we mentioned in this episode, I don't think any of them really grabbed a hold of me. It felt like a movie that knew it was important, but didn't necessarily effectively convey that cinematically. It conveyed it by saying how important it was, and our consciousness bringing in the baggage that this film is, like just having lived through it recently. But I do think that it's not particularly, like, it doesn't particularly flow necessarily. There is a lot of repetitive scenes that, however, important it is and how harrowing these experiences are that these women describe, there maybe could have been a desire to like cut one of them and let something like Jennifer Ely make more of an impression, because by the time you get to Jennifer Ely, we've heard a lot of these situations so often, and there's only so many times that you can hear it in a movie and have it be effective because you're not watching the real people. Now, I will say, I think the best part of the movie, and
I guess a
mini
spoiler,
I guess, a little bit,
based
I
on
don't
real
know,
life. Who knows?
is that Ashley Judd appears as herself. And I found those scenes to be really moving. And I think that, to me, is where I think some of the issues came with this movie, because seeing the reality be depicted in the film made what was fabricated or what was not as real just stand out a little bit more. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, because I think bringing Ashley Judd in meant that you were bringing in an authenticity to the movie, but it then made the other scenes that didn't have the real people kind of stick out more. Like, they mentioned Gwyneth Paltrow, but she's not in the movie, and then I was taken out of the movie because
one of the
that.
Voices sounds very much like Gwyneth Paltrow, so I assumed it was Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah,
I do think. I mean, I still found Jennifer Ely's whole thing very it was honestly my favorite part of the movie. I still found it very compelling and engrossing, and entertaining. I think that might just be where I land on the movie, because I understand everything you're saying. Like, you could have cut it, you could have cut plenty of parts, and I can understand feeling the length. I think it was just the fact that I was entertained by it. I would agree the lead performances, I wouldn't say are like anything too special. I think, but I don't think that
I don't feel like I truly got to know them.
No, but
right now,
that's the
I just,
screenplay more so than them. I think they do good with what they're given.
That's fair.
And I do think the way Maria Schrader framed it is she didn't want the story to be about the journalists. She wanted the story to be about these women who are coming out and giving bravely their stories about what happened to them. And I think having too much there's some stuff going on with Carey Mulligan's character in regards to, it's based on real life. Just the line between spoilers is just weird. I guess I won't say what she's going through just in case you don't know. But they're given some stuff. But I do think Maria Schrader wanted to give most of the emotional heft to the women who are coming out and telling their stories. Rightfully so. And I think that worked well for me. But yeah, I can agree with what you're saying. I would have liked seeing how it impacted the world more, because I will say, in those other journalist movies, I felt a lot more stakes. In this, I don't feel a ton of stakes, besides Carey Mulligan, like, occasionally thinks she's being followed. But outside of that, I didn't feel like the stakes behind what they were doing. And I know it's important because I know the story, but I feel like if someone was watching it who didn't know it, it's not as you don't feel the stakes as much.
That's why I feel like it requires your knowledge of living through this time to really have this film work, because it doesn't really, like, they say that the abuse in Hollywood is overwhelming, but they tell you that. I don't feel like I got showed that, and it's not like I need to see the scene. Like, for example, there's a moment when we actually get to hear the actual tapes of Harvey Weinstein having assaulted somebody. Like, we hear his actual, like, the actual tapes
His
of
words.
the actual guy. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, some of this is really like damning, and some of it is really and it's moving and just really well depicted. And then other points, it just feels like it's trudging along, that it requires your knowledge of this time for you to realize why this was important. And I just also feel like we know what happens. We know that they're successful and that they publish the
Yeah.
story. So making me care about just what it took, because in the end, I know what they did was worthy. I would rather understand what it took for them to do it rather than seeing how they did it, because I know how they did it. I can read the book, I can read their article. You get what I'm saying? I feel like if we're telling a story
Yeah.
about if we're telling a story about the people and the main characters are the journalists, I would want to hear their story. And I understand that it's not the choice that was made here, but I feel because then what they decided to do just felt a little bit monotonous as it went from scene to scene, and it really shouldn't be given how severe these experiences that they're describing are. To me, I felt that was just that's why I disconnected with it a little bit. I think it says something that the last shot of the movie is when they publish, and
That
what
is,
I
I felt stakes with that personally. I felt a lot of
yeah,
tension within that scene about just pushing
yeah,
one button.
a lot of tension. I think it starts strong and it ends strong. But again, I think that says something. The fact that the end of it is the publishing, when I imagine,
The
especially given
aftermath.
the movie, the aftermath, what did it cause, how that affected. There's a whole sequence about how Carrie Mulligan's character was covering Trump and how that affected her in the
Yeah.
wake of it. Like, I think like an extra 10 minutes just to get. That's what I think in the end. I feel like a movie has a chance to let us understand people in a way that other forms of storytelling can't or don't do as well. And this choice to feel, it just felt very literary to me. It didn't feel very cinematic. And I don't think that means the cinematography was poor or the editing was subpar. I just feel like the tools that film allows you to use, I don't think they were necessarily using in the best way.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like some of the best technical stuff of the year. And I do think, especially given the budget, it could have taken a wider scope to the story, and I would have liked to have seen some of the aftermath. Um, but I also wouldn't want any of that to take away from the approach that they did take, which I do like the approach that they took of having the focus be on the women who are coming out about with the allegations. I think
I mean,
that's a good approach
just look at a film like Till, which I think does a similar thing, where it understands that it's telling an important story and is trying to immortalize the courageous act of its subjects. But with me, with that film, why I think I was much more positive on that one was that there seemed to be a specific theme and message to the movie that wasn't necessarily the message and the theme of the real life story. Like, and I think that was for me where it was, because the necessity of filmmaking, there should be a desire to tell the story. If all you're doing is immortalizing what was written in the book, then why not just tell everybody about the book that Megan Twohey and Jodie Cantor wrote? Like, I think Till does something that's important as far as what it does in its approach to using film to tell the story that I just didn't get from She Said.
I could get that. I don't I think it is important, even if it's I mean, I haven't read the book, but even if it's similar to the book to I mean, especially nowadays, lots of people aren't reading. I think is important. I mean, this didn't sadly reach wide
That is
audiences
unfortunate.
because yeah, it didn't do that well. And if you are watching this and you haven't seen it, please just go support it for the sake of like studios like still making these movies, but also because in my opinion, I think it's a well adapted telling of this story overall. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, it wouldn't be one of my favorites of the year, but I think given the task, I think they did a good job.
Yeah, I
Oscar
think
chance wise, it would be lower. It'd be low in my top 10. I think it'd be like my 9 or 10 still,
yeah, I'm considering taking it out for The Whale now, to be honest. I'm
especially
still
with the box office. That hurts.
box office, it hurts. And again, I just, it doesn't do anything really cinematically relevant or important. So it's all on the
No, but
story.
did Spotlight really? Not one Best
I
Picture.
think Spotlight is that's a lean movie, man. You go and you watch it and you tell the story about Stanley Tucci and how it relates to Mark Ruffalo and Rachel McAdams and her relationship with the church and her family. Like, that's the thing. It's hard for me to take out so many great journalism movies because they're a specific type of film. And we've seen recently them do very well. Steven Spielberg's The Post, I thought, was also
I thought
a
this was better than The Post,
worthy
but
film.
that's me.
Um, I just feel like, for example, look at the movie like The Post, where Meryl Streep, in the moment, what she has to say, whether she has to publish or not, like that to me carried more resonance than most of anything in the She Said. And again, I think it
How
comes out
familiar were you with the story in the Post?
not so maybe that affects it. Maybe it was
I
me
think that might be a
already
factor.
knowing the story that I was like, yes, I know, because I could see people maybe having that issue, um, and that it's just too close. Peter Berg, I think, made Patriots Day 5 years after the Boston Marathon shooting, and
Oh
I think
yeah,
it was
that was
similar.
very.
I mean, but that's kind of the responsibility you take when you're telling a story so recent. Like, you gotta then give me a different perspective on the stuff that I saw. And I think the first act did, because it was drawing a link between what Trump unleashed into the world and then how that led into the Me Too movement. I don't know. It just, again, it felt very much a like a parallel adaptation of the book that these wonderful journalists wrote. And so I just go read the book.
Mhm. And if you don't like reading like me, watch the movie, is what I'd
I
say.
guess.
You can do that too. But yeah, Oscar chance wise, it didn't change much for me. Carrie Mulligan still is somewhere in my, she's in my top five still. Just because she's Carrie Mulligan. Carrie Mulligan. She's probably like my 4 or 5. And same with She Said, it's probably like my 9 or 10. We'll just have
I'm
to see
gonna
how it
need
performs
I'm gonna
at
need
other
Carrie
places.
Mulligan to pick up a nomination somewhere before Oscar for her to stay on my
She
list.
just got one at the Sunset Circle Critic Awards.
Ha 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 ha. I mean, Golden Globes,
No,
Critics'
I know.
Choice, SAG. One of those
Yes.
groups have got to nominate her for me to keep her in there. Because if they don't, she's not gonna.
I feel like the Globes will go for this movie.
We'll see.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, that's She Said.
And I want to
Is
say, like, I think people should go see She Said. I think it's an important
they
movie,
should, yeah.
despite some life with it. Because even if you don't, whether you know the story or not, it's a worthy film. It's just one that I think it, you get the sense that it knows it's worthy and it doesn't have to prove itself. And I think maybe that lack of having to prove itself because it felt that it was telling an important story is why it didn't feel like it was connecting, because it didn't do the work to connect itself. I think in the end that's where I land with it. But I still think that, as Jack said, Jack enjoyed it, and I think a lot of people have, and I think it's a film that, go see it, go try it out. If you have some time,
I would
it'd be
suggest
worth
it.
it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good movie. I'd also suggest, since we are two guys, we'll go and reading and watching some
Yes.
female opinions also on the movie. Just as important for this movie. Any movie that is from a female perspective, I think it's also very important because that's a perspective we cannot bring to said movies. But yeah,
Agreed.
that's yeah. Other movie that released, The Menu. I really like this movie. Mark Mylod, who directs the incredible show Succession, he doesn't direct all of it, but he's directed a good chunk of it. Makes I don't know if it's his I don't think it's his debut, but he is coming to cinema making The Menu, which I'm not going to give too much of the plot away in case you haven't seen it. I would say go in as blind as you can. It's pretty much Ray Fiennes as a chef, Anya Taylor-Joy and Nicholas Hoult, some influencer, celebrity type of people, and they visit the chef, is all I'll say. And I really enjoyed this movie. This is one of my favorites of the year, to be honest. I think it's very well edited. I think the screenplay, it's really, really good. I would definitely think it should be nominated there. And I think the acting, especially Ray Fiennes and Anya Taylor-Joy, when those two were on screen together, the movie just was
They
incredible.
had a
Those were
great
my favorite
spark
moments.
when
Yeah.
they were acting opposite. I
Yeah.
agree.
Hong Chow also
Yeah.
very, very good.
Yeah, I this was a surprise to me. I think it plays with tension very well. It doesn't
Yeah.
it's a long time kind of before the movie reveals its cards, and I think it's able to maintain that suspense quite well. Um there's a wit to this movie that I really enjoyed. A lot of really smart, fun, on like text on film jokes that I
Yeah.
enjoy. I think it's handsomely directed, very well crafted. And I think what I really enjoyed was its conversations about when people try to outsmart pleasure and instead of just enjoying it. And I think
Hmm.
the film is able to talk about the different influences we have to things that are extracurricular, that are supposed to be enjoyed, and how to make it feel like it has value. We try to give it more worth. We try to force ourselves to receive it in a way like we're tricking ourselves into receiving this pleasure. So I found that really interesting, and the different perspectives of all the different couples that were and groups that were at the restaurant. Um, Performances are strong. I think my only thing is I would have loved to maybe get a little bit more from maybe lose like one couple. I
It
think
was, yeah. I think you could cut one.
cut one group just because I wanted to get to know a little bit more. Like at all points, it felt like everybody was background characters, which I'm
Mhm.
not quite sure that wanted them to be. It felt very much like Anya Taylor-Joy was the main character, and it was ultimately going to be her and Ray Fiennes that are going to have the main conflict. So I think I would have loved a little bit more, not to use a pun, but I think some of the characters were a bit undercooked.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think again, it's a tense film. It has some very like you can feel it when you are watching a movie and you just know that this is a memorable moment, and there is a memorable scene here, a memorable ending. And I think the ability to craft that is worthy. So yeah, definitely a surprise type of movie, but I
Yeah.
think one kind of like Decision to Leave, it's a genre movie on an indie scale that will creep up on you as far as how genre is able to be utilized when it's not in a big franchise IP type of world.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely one of, if not the biggest surprise of the year so far for me. Really, really liked it. Everything is acting is incredible, writing is incredible, the tension and the editing, all very well done. Yeah. Very, very good movie. I would, if Oscar chance wise, I think like I mentioned earlier, its best shot is at in original screenplay, which me personally, I like this more than Triangle of Sadness. I think it also does the class commentary stuff a little better than Triangle of Sadness does,
It's
in my
easier to
opinion.
swallow. Again, another man. Cooking. We need more cooking
Cook
movies.
puns.
Puns just
Yeah.
come. They're so easy to
I'm so
cook up.
easy. No, my
But
goodness.
maybe we shouldn't have this nominated because then this will be the whole season.
Too many cooking puns. Yeah.
But
Too many.
the menu I think will be more palatable than Triangle of Sadness as far
More
as
to the
it's.
Academy's taste.
I mean, that is left to be. I'm not quite sure because
I don't
they've
either.
gone for unconventional movies sometimes. So
They
we'll
have.
see. But because they're very similar as far as their themes, and Glass Onion is not in the category, I'm interested to see what happens. But yeah, I'm it was go check it out. It's a nice
Yeah.
Thanksgiving
Yeah.
movie, or maybe
I'm
post
tempted.
Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah. Or pre. Or yeah, post
I
probably.
wouldn't I wouldn't do this before eating. We could go
No,
after.
maybe like a while before or a while after. Just
Yeah.
don't plan don't plan too close around your meal's too close around it is what I would say. But yeah, I'm tempted to put it in original screenplay, but that's really it. Um,
Maybe
yeah,
we'll in our own awards.
maybe we'll see. We'll see. And I know I haven't seen it yet. Bones and All released in some theaters this past week. I think it's
Okay,
going
the movie you
wider
don't want to
next
see
week.
before Thanksgiving.
Another, oh my God. So you could have a lot of food puns there. That's such
Yeah.
a funny release date for Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
You know, a feast. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of my most anticipated movies for the year. Great director, great actor and actress in the leading categories. Um, so yeah, I'm very excited to see that, and we'll hopefully talk about it next week. So everyone, go since you didn't see She Said, go see Bones and All, please. Go support these movies. Other only really final thing this week is Strange World got its first reactions. Mixed. I think that movie. Speaking of bombs, this movie's going to be a pretty big bomb in my opinion because they're not marketing it at all. But I think it will probably still get into animated feature. It's Disney under Bob
Yeah.
Iger now.
We'll see. We'll see. Yes, Bob Iger returns.
He does.
We'll see. I think it's gonna be like The Good Dinosaur, which I don't know if it got nominated. I
That
don't
did
think it.
not.
So
No.
maybe it won't be. Maybe it'll be better than The Good Dinosaur.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah,
It could miss. I mean, Pixar's getting it with Turning Red.
it
So
could. Turning Red will get in for Disney. So maybe that's just their lone nominee, and it'll lose, to Pinocchio, which I've seen and is
I mean, that's gonna win.
cool.
Do you have it in your picture 10 now?
It's in my
It's
honorable
my number
mention. I
10.
put it in adapted screenplay though.
Okay, I have it there as
Um,
well. Do you
and
have
I
it in
think
visual effects?
I don't know because I don't. Gold Derby hasn't done visual effects, so I can't say off the top
Oh,
of
I
my head
see.
what the five is because I haven't considered it.
I'd
It's
put it in there.
possible. I think you should not count it out in the music categories. It's a shame that the best song is Ewan
I mean, the
McGregor's
squad.
song that he sings over the credits. He doesn't actually get to sing it in the movie, but it's a great song. So it's a
Ciao,
lovely
Papa.
movie. I honestly see a world where, let's say it gets adapted screenplay, um, animated feature, of course, visual effects, score, maybe song, and maybe picture. It could end
Maybe
up being
production design.
maybe, but it could end up being one of, if not the most nominated animated films in Oscar history.
Yeah, yeah. I would gotta put it in. I mean, I've got it in picture, score. I've got it in production design, which is bold. Visual effects, original song. Um, did I say picture? Yeah, I've got it. I have faith in it. I think Netflix should realize that that's their biggest contender.
Yeah.
It's GDT, and I forget his name, but it's co-directed. So let's not just give GDT all the credit. There's
Yes, let me
another
look up
director
that
behind
as
it.
well.
But yeah, that comes out December. So sadly, we will.
Or it might be playing in a theater near you, as I have already seen it.
Tragically not near me. I don't think Glass Onion will even be
Mark
playing near me.
Mark Gustafson.
Mark
Gustafson.
Gustafsson and GDT.
Sure.
It's a good duo. Yeah, and then final little piece here. Letitia Wright has let's address it. Scott Feinberg, an interesting critic over at the Hollywood Reporter. I personally would not consider myself a huge fan. He's had an interesting week between praising Harvey Weinstein's marketing stuff, comparing it to She Said, retweeting back during TIFF a bunch of negative women talking reviews because he didn't like the movie, and then now, most recently, made an article talking about all the awards controversies and all the actors and people involved in this award season, and he
Will
included
Smith, Brad Pitt, and
some
Letitia
serious
Wright.
allegations there with Brad Pitt in particular. I mean, Will Smith, that's last year. That's been discussed, and there's really not much else to say on that. Brad Pitt, some serious assault allegations that should be considered by everyone voting at the Academy Awards. And Letitia Wright, who made one comment about vaccinations years ago and apologized for it a long time ago. And for some reason, she's being lumped in with Brad Pitt, who is being accused by his ex-wife of some serious assault allegations, which seem pretty true based on what I've read. So yeah, I mean, I think just not good reporting, in my opinion. I know you have strong thoughts on this.
Can I go off now?
You can.
Now listen, when this happened right before we started filming. And I think our desire is just, we are an awards season podcast. We love talking about these things. And this is a situation that I think is detrimental to what we love to do, and especially to an actor like Letitia Wright. I want to mention the other two things first. Retweeting or quote tweeting negative reviews of a movie that maybe you didn't like is not
okay, I guess.
It's fine, I guess. It's not the
it's
best.
kind of trying to spread a narrative when you can just say your opinion and move on instead of trying to push that it's a bad movie.
Because it
notice the continual threat of women in this is all I'll say. It's giving a little misogyny.
Yes, that is true. And then the Harvey Weinstein. Listen, it was a joke. I think it was meant to be a joke.
It's a bad joke. Yeah.
Funny. And some people say it's a joke. Don't take it seriously. The whole point of the movie, and again, this is coming from somebody who's mixed on the movie. I give them credit that they did not cast an actor as Harvey Weinstein and have a scene with him. Like, the whole movie is about him in a way, but it's also ignoring him because his story doesn't need to be told. And so to bring this back in a quip to him,
he also put down the movie, saying it was like, it wasn't greatly marketed, but to kind of say Harvey Weinstein would have done this better than the people behind the movie. It's it's a bad look.
It was in very poor taste, and I think it shows that maybe he didn't understand what the movie was about. Because I don't in this situation, I think we should be for somebody with his platform, lift up the movie, give it a chance. The reason why sometimes these movies don't connect is because people aren't covering them. That's why I'm thankful that Jack mentioned go seek out female and critics and writers who are writing about the movie, because they can give a perspective that is integral to the conversation and the discourse, and one that we shouldn't ignore.
Probably the most important perspective on the entire discourse.
Putting those things aside, this Letitia Wright thing got me really upset. And listen, I'm not asking people to defend what she has done in the past, because you can have your personal grievances with what she said. My issue with what this was about is that if we are not accepting apologies, authentic apologies from people, then what is the point of evolving as humans? I don't understand why we don't allow people to apologize and then accept it. Like, it takes a lot to apologize when people actually mean it. So I think it's only respectful if you want to, and if you feel inclined to honor them, or just ignore it if you don't want to accept the apology. I think that's also a fair reaction. But to do this, which is not only conflate what she's done and what she's said, to Brad Pitt and Will Smith,
Which are both
Brad Pitt
assault,
more
different
specific,
levels of assault, but yes.
yeah, is just incredibly just reductive. And then, so that's A. I just found the article to be so misguided. B, as much as I would love for her to be in contention, and I would nominate her in a heartbeat, she's not in contention for Best
That's
Actress.
SAG
She's not Angela
Ensemble.
Bassett. So why even bring her up? Because she's not actually being considered for Best Actress. Like, again, as you said, the highest award that she could maybe receive is the Best SAG Ensemble. So it just seemed petty and vindictive to.
And it seems like, based on her response in the Instagram story, he has written about this multiple times. It seems like something he is not letting up about for some reason.
Which is, again, just awful and really unfortunate. And then the last thing, and this is a personal thing, and as everybody knows from last week, I love this movie. But I think whether you love the movie or not, Letitia Wright was put in such an unbelievable position to find the strength to play this role when you have lost somebody who and when he was alive, the two of them considered each other brothers and sisters, like siblings. They were very close. To have to find the strength to lead this movie, and I imagine it'll end up being the highest grossing movie led by a Black female in Hollywood history. Maybe people can
I would think so.
Fact check me. Maybe, I mean, Zoe Saldana in Avatar. If
she's not the lead,
she's not the lead. But point being, it's such a monumental achievement that was put on her shoulders, and she did it, in my opinion, flawlessly. She holds that movie together beautifully. We should be honoring that, and I feel like we don't honor women when they make those type of achievements. And to then bring this back and to keep her connected to this thing that she's apologized for is just so unfortunate, and I just found it to be so disgusting. I'm proud that she's sticking up for herself, because truly this is what we should be celebrating people when they do great work. And only Harvey Weinstein being the best example of when we don't do that, when we make sure that we hold people accountable. Letitia Wright does not need to be held accountable, because you know what? You know who doesn't take any BS? Mr. Kevin Feige. And if there was an issue on set, he would have made sure something happened about it. And I'm sure he did, which is why she was able to continue making the movie, that's the other thing. Ryan Coogler never had an issue. Kevin Feige never had an issue. So if the two of them seemingly gave their consent by not saying anything, then why do we have that right to then say, oh no, she should get repercussions for whatever behavior she had? She's made it, she's been on the press tour with Lupita Nyong'o and Denai Guerrero. There's no love lost there. I just found it to be
no one has an issue with her.
It's just awful.
Besides
awful
Scott Feinberg.
Yeah. And I will say, I attended a screening of Halle Berry's film Bruised, where he was moderating, and there were many questions about her sex appeal when she was in the Bond film that she was in. And he ended with the question, what is the biggest misconception people have about you? And Halle Berry answered to some effect, that people don't just see a pretty face. So this has been a continued issue, I feel, especially with women of color, it seems. And I don't know what the Hollywood Report is going to do, but I think this type of behavior.
There's so many better voices out there. Exactly.
Just speaks to not having respect for the people you're covering. I mean, it's, even with, the small platform we have, we try to be very respectful. We're obviously talking about our favorites, and sometimes we're not going to like our movies, like I did what she said or something, like Jack did last week with Black Panther. There are movies.
I like Black Panther, by the way. I was mixed. Yeah. I still lean positive. I didn't hate the movie.
But still, like, there comes a point when you're doing this type of discussion that we always have to try to maintain respect. for the people who deserve it. And Letitia Wright, despite some issues, I believe deserves this. She definitely doesn't deserve the type of discourse that Scott Feinberg was writing about. So we just wanted to mention this because it's important, and we hope that our audience understands that we're cognizant of making sure that we're respectful of the people we talk about, and we hope that others are too.
Yeah, and be aware of what critics you're supporting and the type of people they are. That's all I'll say.
Be a conscious, question us. You can comment us if you have a question, because we would love that. It only makes us better. And don't blindly accept things, because as Letitia Wright shows us, stick up for your dignity, stick up for your integrity.
Yeah, exactly. Good note to end on this week's weekly Oscar talk, heading into Thanksgiving. I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving weekend. Final episode of Andor coming out soon. Stream that, even though it's not Oscar related, maybe Emmys, who knows. But yeah, have a good Thanksgiving. Thank you all for watching. Comment your thoughts on everything we talked about down below. Lots of stuff this week. Like the video, subscribe. Stay tuned for more award season coverage. Going to be trying to do more singular reviews for individual movies. We'll see how that goes. And we'll have reactions coming soon, because there will be actual nominations soon. So yeah, where can they find you on the internet, Anthony?
Yes, you can find me at Anthony_post on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, and at Anthony Post on Hive, just in case that.
I just joined Hive too. I'm Oscar Film FC on Hive.
That is only if Twitter goes down. I cannot maintain 4 social media accounts.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And then on YouTube, spoilers ahead, with Anthony Post. And yes, I apologize for the rant, but you don't come after the Queen of Wakanda. Don't you dare.
Well, she's not the queen, but yeah.
Well, she was for a little sliver of time.
About a little bit. Minutes of that movie. That's true. Yeah. So thank you all for watching. I'm also Oscar Film FC on Twitter and on Hive. I will not be using Hive unless Twitter goes down. Who knows? Maybe I will. We'll see if you want to check that out. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and we will see you next week.
Happy Thanksgiving.